All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another webinar. And what we're going to talk about is how to land your dream job. I'm really excited about this conversation. Different way that we've gone about these webinars, but we have two just great guests here. And as always, I'm just going to guide you all through just quick intros. And, before we do into that, we are going to get into the tactics. Make sure you're taking notes as well. And the one other thing I want to add is all questions, please put them in the Q&A. If it gets in the chat, it might get lost. So I just want you all to be mindful of that. And as you do have comments, feel free to, again, to put them in the chat. All Planlessly attendees, make sure to change that to that. That will make sure that we can see everything in here to remain engaging. So let's go and introduce the guests. So Carolyn, introduce yourself. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Morgan. It's always great to see you. And Carolyn Betts Fleming. I am founder and CEO of Betts. We've been around for 11 years now, aging myself. And we help companies build their go-to-market teams. So, sales, marketing, customer success, everything from SDRs up to, senior level executives nationally, with a big emphasis on technology companies. And so, we work with talent to really identify what their goals are, where they want to go in their careers, and help matchmake them with the right companies. So thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. So you're going to hear a lot of knowledge from her. And then Josh, tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Josh Jordan. I'm joining here from Charleston, South Carolina, born and raised, although I've traveled many places since. Like I said, we'll be in Tampa later. I'm the CEO of Pre-Hired. We help people that are overworked, underpaid, underprivileged get into the tech sector, specifically in the sales role. You start off generally in the SDR role or a junior AE role. We help make that transition happen in about 12 weeks. And we do that for nothing up front. We want to give first, and we take payment on the back end after people get jobs. So that's our mission, to help 10,000 people by 2025 make this transition happen. We're a big advocate for changing the way that people are educated and get some support in their careers in the future. I'm not even going to the whole college system and how, I believe there's problems there. But the other side of what we do as well is we work with some of the top sales teams around the country in tech specifically, and we help them get their junior SDRs or junior AEs in the door from strictly our membership. So we work strictly with our members, and we help them get connected with these top sales teams. So we do both things on both sides of the company.
Awesome.
We've helped 1,200 people up to date. But yeah, we're getting ready to really accelerate this year so we can hit our mission of 10,000 people helped by 2025.
Love it. I appreciate that, Josh. And someone's already giving you love on the One Piece flag. So yeah, that was the first thing I saw. And say, One Piece. If you know what it is, you know what it is. If you don't, you don't. Yeah.
So I love One Piece anime. Awesome. Yeah.
If you know, you know. All right. So me, Morgan J. Ingram over here, Director of Sales Execution Evolution. What I do is help clients with their top of the funnel strategy and their prospecting. Notable clients we work with, Salesforce, Slack, Google, things of that nature, and making sure that they can build their pipeline. So what we're here to talk about today is how do you get your dream job? Just a quick shout out to the sponsors, SalesLoft, Proposify, Vidyard, Rise. These sponsors help us continuously run these events and give you the content that you're looking for so you can be successful in your career and also in your sales profession as well. So we're really looking forward to this conversation here today. And this is really important because someone already asked this question. And if you've been on this webinar, you guys already know where I'm going to go with this. You are going to get the replay. Okay, you're getting the replay. Please do not message me about it. Please do not tweet me about it. Please do not email me about it. I'm going to ignore you. All right, I will straight up not respond to you. You will get the replay. Check your spam if you don't get it. That's what happened. All right, you're going to get it. Please do not ask me this question because it's like the most question that we got. So then we just say, hey, you know what? You can get the replay. It's all good. And again, all questions go in the Q&A and we're going to get to it. I saw a couple come in, but again, we're going to make sure that that happens. All right. So with that being said, first thing that we will talk about is how do you search for job opportunities and how do you go about this in a way that's going to help you get those certain things that you may be looking for here. And so, where we want to start with is Josh, like you're working with so many different people that are coming into this space that may not know anything. And so how should you start this out?
So, wow. Okay. How did this start? Well, I started helping build sales teams like through sales enablement, building out the processes, training people who are already good at sales to get better. But every time we helped a tech company and their sales team, we realized that they were always asking us to help us find junior salespeople to the tech companies. They're like, no, we don't need, like, we have recruiters like care, like these. I actually heard Beth's recruiting come up. It's like, we use Beth's recruiting to get like great salespeople at mid-level or senior level, but we struggle in the junior level. Like, we need more and more candidates. So I was like, what's the problem here? And I realized that there's big disconnect, at least in America, where there's these companies that want qualified salespeople to come in and they call it an entry-level job, but really they want more than entry level. They need to be doing better than that. So I realized there's just this niche that wasn't being fit. So I figured out, how can we connect these people who are in lower class and move them into middle class, or who's in middle class, move them into upper class by connecting them with the skills, tools, and workflows they need to do these jobs. And so it came through basically by chance. I realized there's just these companies saying that we have these issues. So trial and error over since January 2018, when we launched, just been a whole bunch of trial and error of trying to figure out the best way to make that transition happen for regular people. And because most of these people, that we're helping are like Uber drivers, some are salespeople from different industries, but like you name it, they've done it. We've tried it. So that's where it came from, is how do you take someone who has no experience, no corporate experience, no sales experience, business experience, get them in there. And so today that's evolved to, that's where we're at today. But the second part, which I don't know if I'm going to hop into that next, but it related to, how do you actually search for the job? Is that where we're going with this?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the way we've come up with now is like, there's no like fancy. I think the thing that we're going to talk about today is like, it's like not a special trick. It's just treating the job process like job search process, just like a sales funnel or sales process. You basically just don't need to be a lazy salesperson. You need to actually take time, curate lists, target companies you want to work for, and then go after it just like you would with the same excellence as a salesperson. If you are a salesperson, do that. Like, treat the job search process like a career search process.
Yeah, that's really important. And for everyone that's listening in, like, it's like, how do I get inside of an organization? Well, treat it like a sales job. Go figure out, okay, what's the list of companies that I really want to go work for? What are the things that I'm looking for in a company that I want to be inside of? And then also as well, reaching out to reps at the company and asking them like, hey, how did you get this job? What was the interview process like? And what are the questions I'm going to be asked? So that's a quick tip there. Based on what Josh is saying, is that you need to make sure that you're treating this as a sales opportunity and got all the way through, and then really searching it for there. And then Carolyn, like, now we're looking at, relevant sources. So like I just mentioned in talking about, hey, find companies to look for. How do you go about that? Who should you be working with?
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways to figure out who is hiring. And, my personal favorites, first of all, I think you really want to think about, a few things before starting to search, because I think I heard a stat yesterday that there's 8,000 sales openings on LinkedIn right now. I mean, the market is hot, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people, which is amazing, especially after, 2020. So 2021, there's, anyway, a lot happening. So, think, do you want a big company? Do you want a small company? What kind of culture do you want? And really, identify what it is that you want in the next step of your career, and, what type of growth, et cetera. And then, once you identify that, you can go on LinkedIn and Venture Loop. So LinkedIn is kind of all different types of industries, et cetera. And Venture Loop is specifically venture-backed companies that are hiring with open jobs. And then you just type in sales, and the list will come up, and you can go through and do some research on the companies. And and also at Bets, our recruiters know kind of the ins and outs of the different hiring managers, et cetera. And there's no cost to work with a Bets recruiter. The clients pay on our end, so that's another option. And obviously Josh's training is really impressive as well. So, there's a lot of things that you can do to, get yourself knowledgeable. And Morgan, one thing that you had said yesterday that I really found interesting was, when you identify those companies, reach out to people that work there, at your level, to get, also an inside scoop. And I don't know if you want to expand upon that, because I loved that. And it's definitely something that I always recommend too. And, sometimes we'll set up candidates with other reps that we had introduced to certain client companies to give them the inside scoop. And, I think it's a really smart idea, and you're likely to get the meeting.
Yeah. I mean, it's a easy process to follow. It's just something that most people may not think about, right? And it's going back to really the mindset and getting the mindset of that rep. And, Josh, I know you're really big into this mindset piece, because if you really think about what is a leader looking for, they're looking for someone who is genuinely curious, and they're looking for someone who is going to do something outside the box. Even if you're in this conversation and you're not in sales, everybody's looking for someone who could do something different and unique, because how the world works is if you're able to break through patterns and do something different, it's going to truly stand out. So I think having the right mindset around what you're doing is really important. That's why reaching out to a rep that's already at the company is going to break through that. So really, Josh, there's really two questions for you, because we've got one in the Q&A, and someone asked you, hey, do you help people that are older and are making a job pivot? Ageism can be a thing in tech. And it relays it to the second question: how can you develop your mindset around searching for the right opportunities, and what can you be doing to develop yourself so people see that development that you've been doing for X amount of time based on your experience?
Okay. So here's what I love about these conversations is I'm not in HR. And I'm going to tell you the truth of what's going on here. There is, in this world, in our country, you're going to have good managers and bad managers, experienced managers and unexperienced managers, and you're going to have some who are ageist and racist managers. It's going to happen. Thankfully, from what I've seen in the tech sector, that typically doesn't happen as often. So if you ever get a interviewer who obviously is ageist in the way that they're approaching you in a conversation and the questions they're asking you, the way they're treating you, let me just tell you right now, you stand up, turn around, and leave. And just maybe you don't even say thanks. Just get out of there. You're wasting your time, because that manager, if they're there, they won't be there for very long, because there's no way in today's age that a company like that can be successful long term, because the company's only as good as the people that gather to it and are part of it. So if you ever find that, run into it, because it's going to happen at some point. You got to just move on. Forget the company or go to a different manager. I don't want to go into other things you can do, because I don't want to go long-winded on this, but that's what I would say, because ageism does exist. So I've seen it, because we get over 3,000 applications a month for people to come into pre-hired, and we hear so many stories. And thankfully, though, ageism, racism doesn't happen as often as maybe the media says it happens in the tech sector, but it does happen, and it happens to you. Walk away, because here's the thing is, do you really want to work at a company that is going to be this way towards you? Like, really, I really believe everything rises and falls from leadership. So that means from the top up, it's getting trickled down to this is the culture. And culture in a company is just defined as what's acceptable behavior or not acceptable behavior in our company. So if that's what they consider acceptable culture, run away from it. Go to the companies that have great managers, because there's plenty of those around. So that's what I'll say with the ageism thing. The second part of the question is, what was the second part? I don't want to miss that, Morgan.
Yeah. So on that second part, we're talking about like the mindset. So you as that individual, right? You're getting here, and that's another question Brian asked here. We'll kind of relay into this, but the mindset that you have going into it, what can you be doing, and how do you develop a mindset that people are like, wow, this person is diligent. They've done the research, right? They're into growth, because these are things that matter if you're going to bring someone into your organization.
Yes. Okay. So this actually is a mantra that we've actually trademarked for our science-based sales membership program. It's called clarity over closing. I'm not wearing that T-shirt today. I'm wearing the other one that's the popular, the always selling one. But it's got clarity is over closing, or clarity is greater than closing. This is what I mean by that. Is traditionally, sales has this bad rep of people like these hungry folks in plaid suits selling a lemon car, trying to get that paycheck regardless of who they destroy in the process. And that's just not what sales is like today, or should be like today. And thankfully, information, the internet has made it more easy for the consumer, whether you're B2B or B2C, to understand and have clarity and information around what they're buying. So you can't really trick people nowadays, which is great. It's healthy for the industry. So what do I mean when I say clarity over closing? It means that you are more concerned about giving someone clarity about where they're at and where they want to be and how to get there than ultimately closing a deal. If that is your mindset going into any conversation or relationship, because sales is a relationship, and I relate this a lot like dating too, or any relationships. If you put your mindset, if I'm going to serve them, which giving clarity to me is serving. It's selfless, not selfish. If you want to be selfish, you'll probably be a bad salesperson. I'm going to be straight up. You might be able to cut it for 6 months to a year. You'll fail eventually. You've got to be willing to serve and give before you take. So that's the mindset you need to have. If you're going in thinking, I need to get me a job, you might make it. You might get it because if you're really good, you might make the cut. But you know what's really impressive to hiring managers and sets you apart? When you have this clarity mindset over closing and getting the job or making the sale, they recognize right away that you're humble, you're a servant, you're willing to give before you take, you're humble, which comes along with coachability. I mean, these are all the qualities that a sales manager is looking for if they want to hire you. So the best thing you could do is like, take this mindset, because there's a lot of tactics and plays we probably can cover today. We may get to cover some, but this is the main thing I'll say and end on this is mindset is the one thing that you can change, and that will affect your behavior more than anything. So if you start thinking this way, you'll probably avoid all the bad things that you should, and then the good things will come naturally as you just behave this way and think this way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fired up right now because I think the mindset that you have going into this is critical because, yeah, you can make it for 6 months, a year, like you said, and be selfish, but it's more of a long-term play with your career. I think sometimes, especially with any job you think about, you're like, oh, well, I just need this job because it's be good for the next 5 years or whatever that is. But your career is a 45 to 60 year long thing. So if you were selfish for those 3 years, those people you worked with could be a manager in the future, could be a huge decision maker you're working with. So that's something really important to keep in mind. Last thing that on this slide that we're going to touch on, and we'll go to the next one. We'll answer some other questions here. Brian said, hey, can you give some more guidance on the kinds of criteria we should use to find the right company? We've mentioned things like culture, size, but what are the most important things to consider the right fit so you're not looking at the door 6 months later, right? Basically, hey, I get kicked out. So I'm going to open this up. Josh, Carolyn, if you guys want to dive into this one, I think there's a lot there, but that's Brian's question.
Yeah, I'll dive in. I think that, I love the dating analogy, Josh. I do the same thing. And, I think that a lot of job searching is kind of like dating where, okay, you're on Tinder or whatever, Bumble, whatever the site is. And the person looks interesting enough, right? The company looks interesting enough to explore further. And, obviously you can do the website. I mentioned talking to employees, but also when you interview for a job, it's a mutual process, right? They're interviewing you and you're interviewing them, right? I mentioned that 8,000 jobs. So, people are going to have options, and obviously the better you put you put yourself forward and representing and doing the research and, getting yourself in a position that you're knowledgeable about the company and the industry and what the job's going to be, you're going to have more options. But really, interviewing your manager, right? What is your leadership style? What can I expect, to learn from you in this company? What does the promotion path look like? Obviously I'm going to come in and work super hard. And, what does my growth path look like? How am I going to continue to learn and grow? And, making sure that you really like that person. That person might get promoted or leave or whatever. So also the other people, the executives at the company, I think, looking into and also asking the other employees that work there is super important. I would actually ask real people that work there as opposed to, Glassdoor is one thing, but I think that real life people, I think Glassdoor is sometimes a little challenging because, sometimes you get disgruntled people that go on there.
Yeah, there's some people who are a little tilted. It's like, oh, okay. That's how you feel? Okay. All right.
You want to talk to people, like get a balanced opinion, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people go on Yelp and write like, this restaurant's awesome. It's like, they forgot my, whatever, and I didn't, whatever. So go ahead, Morgan. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm with Josh. Anything you want to add to the criteria? Because I think this is really important to know, like, what are you looking for? And I'll add the context point on that before you go, is that, yes, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. I think that's something that most people, when they go into the jobs, they're like, oh, I'm looking for this dream opportunity, which is awesome. At the same time, though, you are interviewing them to see, like, do they fit my criteria? Because, I mean, I've been interviewed, so I was like, yeah, y'all are not a fit. Like, for me, like, I would feel comfortable being there. So, Josh, talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So everything Carolyn said is spot on. So, like, I'm not going to echo, because that was just awesome. So the only thing I'll add on to what both of you, Morgan and Carolyn, just said is that the importance of asking the interviewer questions is just as important as you answering their questions. And here's why. A great salesperson is not someone who has all the answers. It's someone who asks really good questions. So if you want to see a good salesperson, don't look for someone who has all the good answers, but they have good questions to ask. Because if you can ask the right questions, that's an invaluable asset that most people don't have. And I know when I say that, that doesn't mean just asking random questions that are out of context and don't help give anyone clarity. So you need to become skilled at asking questions and making it more of a conversation, like Carolyn was talking about, and not a one-way interview, but more of a dual streak. Like, we're both interviewing each other. We're both considering a relationship. Is this the one, at least for the next couple of years, is this the one, right? So we both have a right to ask the right questions, but most people aren't like thinking like, what should those questions be? Like, what should I be asking? I mean, of course, you're thinking about the money. You're thinking about the things that like have to pay the bills and stuff. But beyond that, making sure that it is a true fit for both parties. And then when you can show the hiring manager that you're thinking not only of yourself, but of them by the questions you ask, now you're starting to impress them more than most of the candidates at the interview. So yes, it's a two-way street. Make sure you come with questions to ask them that's beyond just how much do I make? What's the package like? And all that stuff. Like, go deeper to making sure that you show them that you're going to be excited to do this job and that you're going to make the company better by being there.
Yeah. And I'm going to go this slide so you guys can absorb these next points. And this will go into the brand question that some of you all had, someone asked in here. Josh, though, every interview is going to be different, right? But are there like 3 questions that you would say, hey, ask, these are great questions to ask if you maybe aren't the best at asking questions?
Okay. Yeah. Let me think. So if I'm going into an interview with the sales manager and I know the job description and we start talking, and then one of the first things I'm going to know is like, so how are things going? Like I actually will be like, so how's things going in your team? That's how I'll start off, as conversational. I'm like, so how are things going in the sales department? Like, and then get them to open up. And it's the same tactics you use as a good salesperson when you're selling a product, by getting them to talk. And then if they say, oh yeah, it's great. I'm mirroring, right? I'm mirroring great.
Yep.
And then I just listen and wait for them. And then naturally that psychology is like, they're screaming. I got to answer more, because now the way that Josh has responded with great, with that intonation in the back of my, raised that voice at the end of great, like a question, they feel compelled now to share more information. And then if they share, yeah, like it's going great. We're doubling the number of people. We're hiring 20 people, or we're doubling the hires this year compared to last year. Wow, that sounds incredible. Like, what caused you to make these hires? Like, what's causing the growth? What's causing the new positions? Like, right. So one thing I will say is you got to learn to be naturally curious. There's a lot of things I think salespeople, to be truly a master at sales, there's a lot of things you can be. But one thing is, curiosity is like one of the most important things, I believe, because when you're curious, you're curious and care about others and want to know more about them. You're like, well, why is that? So get in that frame of mindset. So I'm going back to mindset, is asking like, how are things? Remember what I talked about? Clarity. Where are you at? Where do you want to be? How do you get there? Like, that's what you're doing for them in an interview for them. And they don't even realize it. So do that. Think about like, hey, how are things going? Okay, if things are going so perfect, well, like, how could I make anything better? Or maybe I can't. Like, put yourself into their equation, not the other way around. This is one of the problems I see with interviewers looking for jobs, salespeople looking for jobs. It's still all about like how I can like help you before you've even had a chance to diagnose what's going on in their business. So take the time to ask them questions. How are things going? How's the role? Like, what do you think the most challenging things are in this role? Like, what do you see most of the people who churn and fail or get fired? Like, why did they get fired? Why did they leave? Like, what do you see as the most challenging aspects of this job? Any of these things I'm shouting out right now, things you can ask after you kind of get things started and think like, but I would start with like, hey, how are things going in the sales department? I want to know if that's my manager or one of the people that might be hiring me or running me or leading me.
Yeah.
I want to know their perspective.
Yeah, I think the two things there for everyone that is one, like genuine curiosity and continuously build on that. How are things going? Like starting the conversation there about the sales department, getting the good context. And then two is the mirroring. Mirroring is something that you can easily practice. Hey, things are going great. Great, right? And then like that tone and really nailing it and practicing that piece. So Josh, I appreciate that. Now we're here. Carolyn, we figured out how to search. We have the criteria. We have the mindset. Now we're on LinkedIn. All right. And LinkedIn, as y'all know, can be a hot mess. So help us out, Carolyn. What do we do once we get to LinkedIn? And then how important is building your brand? What does that even mean? Talk to us.
Yeah. I think that LinkedIn, it's interesting, right? Because at Bets, we have some clients that will, if you don't have 500 plus connections on LinkedIn, they pass. And,
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Sales, right? And so we recruit salespeople and they want people that are natural connectors, that build relationships, that really understand the industry, that know how to leverage technology, right? LinkedIn is, and also for prospecting, as you know, Morgan, it's a really great tool, obviously using it to be able to, ask educated questions, as opposed to talking about what the weather's like in Atlanta today, or, I'm, in Austin, Texas, whatever, like, oh, honey, I can be like, so Morgan, you started out, back at, after college in sports, I think, right? Was that it? I'm like trying to remember. But, like, tell me about that. Like, and asking a real question. So, I think that's one thing is, when you're using somebody's LinkedIn profile, use it to ask questions about them, their background, how they got to be where they are. And this is the question here is like how to connect with them. But I think that's part of the connection, right? Of like understanding somebody's background, how they grew in their career, because that's going to be indicative to how they work with you to help you grow your career. And then, when you reach out, I can't tell you how many messages I get nowadays from people saying,
I don't even want to see them. They're probably crazy.
Everything's wrong in the world. Like, just like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Morgan, who's crushing it and is busy till April. And, Josh, who's helping 10,000 people get jobs in the next, 4 years. And, so anyway, so I think that reaching out was something that would be important to them and saying, hey, Carolyn, I saw what you guys are doing at Bets. And, I love how you guys are, helping people partnering with Barrows or whatever it is that, that we're doing that's interesting to them. I'm really interested in working at your company. I want to get into recruiting and, go heels or something. I don't know. And I'm going to respond, if it's personalized and positive and, they did some research and, we're hiring, right? Like we need to hire 15 people this quarter. So I'm going to like that. And I'll, likely say, hey, thanks. I'll get their email and introduce them to somebody on my team because I'm not really the hiring manager. So I think that personalized reach out and positivity is what I look for.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the personalization piece. Someone asked a question here talking about, how can we use videos in the hiring process and how can it be different? So I highly encourage people to use video. People that, I'm not on the recruiting side, but people will still reach out and be like, hey, how do you get a job? And say, use video because no one else is doing it. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to get a job and you're going to stand out above everyone else than the generic resume. So how? It's super simple. So after your first interview, send a video follow-up. Most people don't even send an email follow-up. So if you send a video follow-up and just say, hey, thanks so much for meeting today. This is what I got out of it. Really looking forward to the next interview. Like that will stand out. And then also using video to talk to the job responsibilities. So if I was looking for a job right now, this is all I would do. I would literally just go to the website. Every single website and careers page has a job description. And then in that, they say it's either job responsibilities or what you're going to do. And I would just make a video, screen share video, and just be like, hey, this is what you would want someone to do in the role. Here's how I would accomplish these things. And I would just nail like the main 5 points that are there. Typically, it's like 5 to 10. So I just pick 5. And then I would just send that to the manager or the recruiter, and I guarantee you get a response in 24 hours. If you did about 10 to 20 of those. So like that's how you use video, is to showcase yourself, and you're also showing your confidence, because most people won't do what I just told you. So if you do it, you will get multiple interviews. I'll tell you that, because I've had people do that and they got immediate responses and got jobs that they thought they wouldn't be able to get because they did something that most people won't do. So that's what I would tell you to do there.
Yeah. And Morgan, I just, in communicating with you, like I always love how you send me videos or voice messages. And I'm not as cool as you. But it really does work. And it's interesting because, on our Connect platform, where, that's how our clients view the talent that we're working with, there is an option to upload a video. And what we've seen is that the people that put videos get, far and away, I don't know the exact number, more interviews. And we even have clients that if people don't have a video, they won't consider them. They really want the people that went above and beyond, did the video. And it's also crazy how long it's taken our industry to adopt video. You would.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
And we do it for sales, like Vidyard. I saw they're one of your sponsors, and our sales reps do the same thing. And it's really game changing, and it sets people so far apart, and it's super easy.
Super easy. And I want to go to a question about LinkedIn from Rob, and then I see your question here, Tim, about high turnover. So that's just going to go into another question I have. But when you connect on LinkedIn initially, do you recommend to ask about their job posting in the first contact, or start by asking about their company or even something else? I'll open up to both of you to see what's your thoughts on that. I know it can go a lot of ways. I would say
there's so many ways to go about it.
What do you say, Carolyn?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you were talking too, but I think the reason why we all paused is because, I think there's a lot of, echoing what you guys said, there's a lot of ways to go about it. Can you read the question one more time?
Yeah, no, you're good. So all it was is saying that, hey, when you connect on LinkedIn initially, do you recommend to ask about their job posting in the first contact, or start by asking how their company or something else? So basically, hey, I connect with somebody. What's the next step?
I would express interest. You don't want to wait. People are so busy right now. And so I would say, hey, Morgan, love what you guys are doing at Barrows. See you're hiring for an SDR. I watch your videos, and, go Falcons if that's your team. I don't know who it is.
Unfortunately, it is.
Or something along those lines, somewhat personalized, expressing interest, and then also loving your idea of, if you can send a video about, go for it. Get it all out there on the first contact, because it'll move the process forward faster, and they're more likely to respond if you're if your intention is clear of why you're reaching out and what you want to get out of it. That's what I think. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like Carolyn said it best right there, is that, and here's the reason why, is because now I understand the question whenever you rephrase it. It's like, oh, we're all thinking from a salesperson's perspective of when you're in sales, you can't be too fast. Like in a dating relationship, you can't just go on the first coffee date and slap a ring on the table and say, what's it going to take to put the ring on the finger, yo? Like, it doesn't work that way. So the question was kind of like, should I move more slowly to getting up to I would like to work for you? And by doing all this, maybe flattery or maybe real compliments, and building up to, hey, by the way, can I get this job? And the answer is exactly what Carolyn said. No, go straight to the point with the job. Because here's the reason why. It's actually really simple. And I think a lot of salespeople forget this. When you're selling and you're doing cold outreach, no one is soliciting you to sell them that thing. You're going after them normally if it's cold outreach. So you've got to be a little more tactful in the way you approach it. You just got a post all on LinkedIn or Monster or wherever you're going to look for jobs that we want people that are good to work for us. Please contact us as soon as possible. So really, you're not doing anyone favors by delaying that. Just respond. Say, I saw the posting, like exactly what Carolyn said, exactly what Morgan just said earlier in a video. Get to the point. Don't waste anyone's time. They'll love your brevity. So do that.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff there. So the certification, so I want you guys to absorb this information, but I think this question is just important because it goes back to the initial, how do you address a company with high turnover? So essentially you see they have high turnover, but you're going through the interview process and you want to just understand what's going on there. It's kind of what you talked about, what's going on with your sales team, Josh. But you see it, you're in the interview. How do you handle this?
So unfortunately, some of the companies that apply to work with us to hire our salespeople, we ask them a lot of these questions. And one of the things we talked about is turnover and churn. And whenever that happens, I encourage every single person to do exactly what we do at our team, which is to say, what's going on? Like, why do you have such high turnover? Like, we know market rate, we know what's going on. Like, why is it so high? And if they don't have a clear, specific answer that's backed by data that we can at least kind of understand what's going on, it's like there's something probably wrong with that company. So how do I address it? How should you address it? Candidly and quickly. Like, get to the point, just be like, hey, why is your turnover so high? And here's the thing, if they get offensive by that question, or we can reword it, not make it a why question. You can make it like a what question, but like, basically you want to understand what's going on with turnover. So if they can't calmly answer that question with like logic and rationality, then ask yourself this, like, well, think about it. We always think, what's the worst thing that could happen to us? Like, what if they blow up at you and get angry and say, why are you asking this, blah, 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 blah. Stop right there and think, do I want to work for that manager? That's when you stand up, they disqualified themselves. Thank you. I'm going to go to a good company. Like,
I'm out.
That's so, yeah. Don't filter so much. I'm just going to say this. Don't filter so much. Like, I don't know what people, I think sometimes we get too nervous when we're in an interview. Don't be nervous. It's a relationship that goes both ways. Don't filter so much because it lets you ask questions like that. And when you realize that they do something weird or something that a bad manager does and that a good manager doesn't do, you can be like, all right, well, have a good day. Like, I'm done. Like, and you go to the next company.
Yeah, well, I would piggyback on that and say, I think asking the question that's in your head is important. I like to frame questions a little bit more positively as opposed to what's going on with your turnover. Like, fill me in on the retention of the reps on your team. Who's been here the longest? What does that look like? What's the growth path, et cetera? And then also going back to Morgan's thing, ask people that work there, what is it like to work here? And, people will be honest. They'll be like, it sucks. I'm looking, don't come work here. Or, it's great. We've had some turnover, but, it's COVID. I mean, I've never seen higher turnover numbers, more people looking for jobs I think a lot of people want to change. So it might not be that company per se, but people just, wanting to try something new. And so, I think that getting, feeling the chemistry and hearing the hiring manager, if they're defensive, if they're genuine, if they care about their people, they care about their team, they care about their growth, and also getting to know some people that also work there is a really good way to vet, if this is a place you want to be.
Yeah, I think these are all fantastic points. Hopefully y'all taking notes on that as you go into your job interviews here. And let's talk about certifications. So I'll give you all a quick story. Most people actually don't know this. So I originally wanted to go into marketing. I wanted nothing to do with sales at all. And so I tried to do everything I could to get a marketing job. So what I did is I went to HubSpot and probably did every certification possible. They've all expired now because they only last like a year. But I did like the inbound one. I did like the marketing drip kit. I did like so many just so I could say I had these certifications so I could get the jobs. Now, I interviewed for a lot of marketing roles, ended up not getting any, or I didn't want to do it. So then that's what got me into sales. And I actually worked at a company that did marketing because I was still heavily involved in marketing. I wanted to actually go into sales and then go into marketing, but obviously I'm here now, so that didn't happen. But I got the certifications because it helped me get an advantage because I had massive gaps on my resume because I came out of college, but I had these certifications, so people were willing to at least have the conversation with me. So that's want to just tell you all a personal story on why I believe certifications are so important, but really want to hear from Carolyn, I know there's you're working with so many people here.
It's so funny because that you don't think of yourself as in marketing. Because I mean, yes, you're teaching all these amazing people how to sell and be successful, but you are absolutely also in marketing. You market yourself, you market your knowledge, you know, and I think anyone in sales is also in marketing. But anyway, that's just a side note. And maybe those certifications helped you out. And you know, I think that, you know, obviously, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but, you know, we've been doing work with you and John and team on helping under-resourced people have access to training and, you know, for free to help give them a leg up in the job interview process. And, you know, I think it's interesting because I think the certifications are great because they give you more knowledge about what the job is that you're going to be getting into. And it gives you skills that you can show up on the interview and perform better. You know, you have context, and it also shows. And the reason that, you know, I had even approached you with this idea in the first place was, you know, like the fact that, like when you said, oh, you did all these certifications, some probably were great, some were probably worthless or whatever. I don't know. But, right? Like, is that true?
I mean, yeah, with most certifications or even most classes you take, like, I don't remember Algebra 101, right? So like I had to use it to get here to get to the next class, right? So.
Totally. Right, exactly. But like the fact that, you know, when you tell that story, I'm like thinking, what an overachiever, you know? And so you show up, and whether or not they were great or not, the fact that you took the time to invest in yourself, your education, before you showed up interviewing for those jobs and, you know, wanting to make sure that you put your best foot forward speaks for itself. And so I think it's really, you know, important to do that, to show yourself, especially if you don't have experience in the industry. You can't put all that on your employer, and obviously they'll train you and you want to make sure there's good training, et cetera. But that's my thought, and why, you know, we'd even had the conversation in the first place, to give people an advantage in the interview process.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of that is really important. And I think the one thing that for everyone to take note there is then showing that you invest into yourself. And especially if you're going in a sales job or any other job, if you can show that you've done that investment, that means that when you get in the organization, that you're going to be willing to be proactive, and they're a person that they can rely on moving forward too. So that's something just to add there. And we have a question that came in, and I think this question is really important because maybe this can be with the certifications or not. But the question here is, what if you truly desire to get a position in a company, but requirements are years of experience or certain skills that you have not acquired yet? How do you present yourself? Basically, I'm coming off as unqualified, but I know I have the desire and drive to get it done. What should this person do?
Are you asking? I guess I can speak to this. And
yeah, just open it up. Yeah,
Josh might have some things to say on this as well. You know, this is one of the things that I think that the industry really needs to work on in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion, et cetera, on the job descriptions that they put out there. Because I think a lot of people, and I think that there's certain types of people that'll apply no matter what. And hey, you know what? I have like one of the 10 things. And so I think companies need to be better about really figuring out exactly what it is that they need to do. And then I think that creating a story about yourself, and this is something that we're really big on here at Bets. And we just helped somebody who was an electrician transition into technology sales. And, you know, you would think that electrician has never sold technology. Obviously, they went through the Barrows certification, and they also took their electrician experience and really thought about, okay, why is this relevant? What are the skills for the job? I might not have, you know, cold call or, you know, whatever it is in your experience. And it would be a lot easier for me to give you really tangible advice if I knew what your background was and I saw the job description that you were interviewing for. But I think that you can, you know, really think about it. Like, when was the first time you sold something? What, you know, so matching the certification with, pulling real anecdotes from your experience that are relevant to the company. That's my advice. Josh?
Yeah. So related to certifications or skill gaps whenever you're applying to a job. I guess there's two things I have to say on that. Number one is, if you if there's a job for a VP of sales or sales manager and you're nowhere near that level, like that requires 6 years of experience, you have 2 years of experience, like don't apply for it. Like you're wasting your time and their time. But if you're talking about there's a small skill gap, or let's just say there's 10 or 20% missing, take a chance, see what happens, right? In sales, we're all about A/B testing to get stuff right. So I would say go for it and see what happens. And if you fail, figure out why you failed so that you can learn from that. And then maybe you can apply next time to a role very similar and do it. Now, at some point, you have to come to terms with optimism and reality. Like sometimes your optimism does not match your perception of what reality is. So if you truly realize that you have a skill gap, that's where you do need to figure out where can I get the missing pieces so that I can get the jobs that I want. Because at a certain point, because these are stories I hear, literally thousands of stories every month, of people saying I've applied to 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, hundreds of companies, and then I get this results and I get knocked out before the interview or at this stage of the interview process. And then it's like, well, it's clear that this is your problem. You're missing these things. So do you want to get these things, or do you want to shoot for a job that's like less than this job? Like it's your call. So that's where I think getting mentors or communities and people around you that can help you with those things is crucial. And that's where certifications have a place. I think that as long as, that's the last thing I'll say on certifications is every certification is different. Like a JBarrows certification is going to be way better than a certification from somewhere on Udemy or something like that, right? So you need to know like the quality of the certification you're getting, because really the piece of paper doesn't matter that much, all right? What matters is, can you do the job, not what did you do in your past? Now, here's what I want to clarify that real quick though. A piece of paper might get you in the door. A certification might get you like the chance to give your elevator pitch. But here's the reason why it never will take you further than that is because all sales managers, if not all managers, they have this goldfish memory. You know, goldfish, they can remember things for like 5 seconds. It's always like, what have you done for me lately? That's what they're always thinking. So it's kind of like you come in saying, oh, I can do this. I've done this. I've got 20 years of sales experience where I knew the VP of blah, 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 this company, all the Fortune 500 companies, whatever. They're thinking, oh, that sounds like, I don't care. What can you do now? What can you do for us now? What will you do for us lately when you're onboarded? So this is where I like what Morgan said earlier about showcasing skills in videos, like over email. I mean, you can do it in email too, but he specifically was talking about showcasing skills through video. Because you're showing, not telling. Don't be a braggart. Don't tell people. Show them. So here's what I recommend is if you got a certification, maybe mention it, maybe slide it on your resume. But it's still, if you were to ever ask me, what do? Do I show a certification and talk about like all those things that I've learned, the certification, how great the brand is? Or would it be better just to show them how I'm an awesome salesperson? I'm going to tell you to show them every single time. You'll get the job of the person who's trying to just use the cert to get all the way in. So certifications have a place, especially if they're credible and you learn a lot from them. But a piece of paper is still just a piece of paper. I'll stop there. I'm not going to, because I've seen so many Harvard grads and all these other grads that have MBAs. I'm like, I ain't hiring you. I don't care if you're like, whatever, like, what have you done lately? And I'm like, so I'll end on that. Like, they have a place. And remember, show, don't tell.
Show, don't tell, and apply those skills. And so let's get to the interview itself, interview technique and tips. Okay, so this will, a lot of good amount of questions coming in. So this will probably, we've already answered like a good amount of these in terms of like asking the right questions, right? So Josh, you went into detail about that. So Carolyn, tell us a little bit more about interview techniques and tips here. What should people be preparing for? How are they crafting the right message? And someone mentioned storytelling. How do you do this? Because we talked about just that recent experience, right? That's an example of telling that story too.
Well, and a lot of people ask you to tell them about yourself or walk through your resume, right? And it's really interesting because a lot of times, and when we're working with people, we'll do what we call like a prep before the interview. And sometimes we're like, oh, do I really have to prep? Other people are really excited to have the help. And it's crazy when, a lot of times people are like, oh, okay. And they're not expecting that and they don't really know where to start. And so my recommendation is, start at the beginning and you say, hey, I'm from here, and you make it concise. But I'm from the Bay Area. I played sports in high school. I ended up going to college at the University of North Carolina, moved back, and my first job was selling ads in the Yellow Pages, the actual book. I was one of the top performing people there. I had the highest number of sales per day. And then I fell into recruiting. And anyway, I'm not going to tell my whole story, but you can quickly go from, opportunity, place that you went. I mean, I sold the actual book, guys. Like that is just really shows how old I am. And, but that was it was door to door. I mean, during COVID, that would never happen, but that is a good story. And, when I went and I got a job at Career Builder after Andiamo, and that's a perfect example of, I had never sold technology. I sold, I worked with talent to help them get jobs. And, with our clients at Andiamo, I worked there for 4 years. And then, I interviewed at Career Builder for an enterprise sales job. And I'd never sold enterprise in the large companies. I remember 3 months in, I asked my boss, what's procurement? And I don't know if you guys know what procurement is, but in large companies, there's a whole organization that basically tries to stop people in the company from buying things. And you go there right before, and the person wants to buy from you. And then you go to procurement. But I had no idea this even existed because I had never sold anything in enterprise. So, having a really good story about, I can't remember exactly how I got that job, but I think they realized I was going to work really hard and I was determined, and I had a good process for prospecting and getting my foot in the door to companies. So I don't know if that answers some of the questions about story, but it doesn't have to be necessarily exactly relevant to the job, but close enough that they can see that you'll be able to come in and be successful for the role.
Yeah, and the big thing is, if we go back to the research, knowing your audience, if you can go do research on the people that are getting hired. Typically, I'd like, if you have a recruiter or whoever's handing you off, to tell you who the manager or whoever's going to be, so that you could go on LinkedIn, go Google, even find some interviews sometimes on people and bring up those insights that you learn. I think those are really important when it comes to the interviewing techniques. So I know we got 5 minutes left here. We got a lot of questions still. So on this end, creative ways to stay on the interview. We even talked about the video. So that's one thing here. But Josh, what are creative ways that you're telling people hey, this is how you can stand out. This is what's going to help you get get the job across all different roles that we may be talking about here?
Yeah, for time's sake, and since I kind of answered that a little bit earlier about really coming in, understand you're going to give and not take, you're going to give them clarity, you're going to be curious and ask them questions, and just ultimately demonstrate that you know the job inside and out. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is demonstrating in the interview that, listen, I'm the right person. I know this job better than most of the other candidates that are applying, and I'm probably a good bet because I've got character and competence. They're looking at character. Are you a person we can trust that has integrity? Competence, are you good at what you do? Are you a professional? If you have both of those things, they're probably going to hire you. So demonstrate that in their interview, in the way that you answer questions, and in the way that you also ask those questions, and in the stories that you tell, we've been talking about just the last couple of minutes.
Yep. I mean, we've talked about so many different creative ways. I think what it really just comes down to is think about what are things that people probably aren't doing in interviews. So most people, funny enough, don't ask questions at the end of the interview when the manager says, hey, do you have any questions? Most say, nope, I'm good. That in itself, if you ask questions, is standing out. It was mind-boggling to me, as many interviews as I did as a manager, how many people just didn't ask. So we have some further questions here. I want to make sure to get to everyone. Yeah, go ahead, Carolyn, answer it.
Reminds me of those old YouTube videos we used to do, shit not to say on an interview. And that was one of the things. Nope, I'm good. Nothing comes to mind.
What? Makes no sense to me whatsoever. I was like, okay, well, this is probably someone I'm not considering, right? So we have 3 minutes left. There's a couple questions here that I want to get to, and then we're going to shut it down. If you want any more of this content, you see right here, ondemand.jbarrows.com. Come check it out. But we do have a couple questions that I want to get to. So, Timothy, as an SDR applying for an AE role, what's the best way to show you're the best candidate, considering we haven't done AE tasks like forecasting and pipeline? To open it up to anybody who wants to go into that one.
One more time.
I said, so as an SDR applying for an AE role, what's the best way to show you're the best candidate? Considering we haven't done AE tasks like forecasting and pipeline. Basically, I haven't done any type of AE things, but I've been really successful as an SDR. So yeah, go ahead.
Storytelling thing, right? Like think of in your life when you've done stuff like that. And I would also, I would talk to the AEs. I would see if you could, listen in to, as much as you can try and get that experience yourself. I would go through, the Barrows, closing training that they have, watching some of those videos about the different steps that you take, the questions to ask. I would do as much upfront stuff, and then also tell stories about how you might have closed in other parts of your life, if you could think, like the electrician, right? Like, hey, I'm sure he had to go to people's houses and say, hey, want me to do this work? Yes, no, here's the price. And so that's my thought. Josh, do you have anything to add?
One thing I'll just tag to that is if you're waiting until the job is opened and you want to apply for it, you're too late. You need to advance, like take ownership of that role, like in your mind, in advance and ownership of your career path. So that means if in 6 to 12 months, you want to be an AE or whenever that is, start, like Carolyn just said, getting to know some of the AEs, asking to shadow them, and then start actually seeing if ask your manager, hey, could I just take a couple discovery demo calls or whatever you would be doing, and you don't get paid for them or whatever, like just try to start getting experience. So when the time comes for a role to open up as an AE, you've already proved out that you're willing to do it for no pay, like because you've learned it, or you've at least gotten a little bit of experience and maybe some commission for it. But I would rather, I'm just saying, if you can't get paid for it because they don't want to take that risk yet, at least offer to do it, to learn, right? So don't wait until the last minute to get that opportunity, or it's going to be harder to get. So go ahead and prepare for that.
Last thing I'll say as I close out on this point, you have something very unique. Most AEs are allergic to prospecting. So you're an SDR. So now you can say, hey, look, I've been doing this consistently prospecting, and most AEs that we talk to they don't prospect as much. So you could talk about that experience and say, hey, I'm willing to actually do prospecting, build pipeline, help me learn these closing skills. And then to Carolyn's point, hey, here's some stories I've done on closing. So guys, we're at the mark, right? And there's a couple questions still here. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to me. Please reach out to Josh. Please reach out to Carolyn. So Josh, Carolyn, where can they find you as we wrap up this webinar?
Yeah, Eric, feel free to reach out to me. I can help you with this. So my email is Carolyn, Carolyn, @betsrecruiting.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. So just Carolyn Betts Fleming. And we check all the messages that come through. So happy to connect after this.
And then for anyone that wants any more information, just go to prehired.io. Or search me, Josh Jordan, on LinkedIn, and you'll find me. And I only get to respond to LinkedIn twice a week, so I'm sorry if I don't get to it fast enough, but I will eventually get to your question. So go to the website if you want faster attention from one of our directors or something, because they know all this stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. Hopefully this was helpful in finding your dream job and getting to the next step in your career. Where to find me at Morgan Jagram on LinkedIn or Instagram, because if you hit me up on LinkedIn, I have the cap, so I can't. There's nothing I can do. So I have a 30K connection limit. They won't let me add any more people. So I'm just trying to talk with LinkedIn to fix it. But anyways, guys, everyone have a great rest of your day and a great week, and hope to talk to y'all soon.